Hey, welcome back. Before we get started with our React TypeScript development, let me introduce TypeScript to you. So TypeScript is a new programming language that is designed to be a superset of JavaScript. Now this means that TypeScript is everything JavaScript is and some more. So the question is, what more can TypeScript do than JavaScript? So TypeScript can primarily create type safe code, which means it's a lot more maintainable and the chances of runtime errors are considerably lesser. So why should you use TypeScript? So TypeScript compiles directly into JavaScript. Therefore, you get all the advantages of a compiled language in JavaScript itself. Now, using TypeScript, your code becomes a lot more readable, especially for somebody else to come and read it. And this is also applicable when you're working with very large projects. So the compiler will help you reduce the number of runtime errors that you fall into when you're doing very large projects and you're dealing with a lot of different types of requests and things like that. Now, another advantage that TypeScript gives you is that because it's a compiled language, the compiler guides you whenever you need to refactor the application to maybe add new features or make some changes, etc. So in order to just try out TypeScript before we jump into React, let's first install the TypeScript compiler. So all you have to do is simply go to your terminal, and you probably already have npm installed. We did this in the previous lesson. So we have npm version 8.12 installed here. So all you have to do is run npm install -g, which represents a global installation. Now this just means that you're installing TypeScript on your entire system instead of, for instance, in a certain project. So, and install TypeScript. And we have installed TypeScript. It's saying that you added one new package. So let's simply say create a new directory simply to test out what we did here. And we don't have a file here, so I'm gonna simply say I'm gonna create a file named index.ts, which represents TypeScript, similar to us having JS files with JavaScript. And I'm gonna say const text equals hello world, and then I'm gonna say console.log of hello world. Now this is practically JavaScript itself. You don't really see much of a difference in this specific scenario. Then what you need to write to compile the TS file and get a JavaScript file as an output is to run tsc, or TypeScript compiler, tsc index.ts. And now if I check all the files here, there I have an index.js file, which was generated by our TypeScript compiler. So now if I write node index.js, we have our hello world program in TypeScript right there. Now, the more important question about writing TypeScript is how is it different from JavaScript, and how do you make TypeScript code type safe compared to JavaScript, or what is type safe, right? So let's simply open up our file here. And what I'm going to do is I've made the const text. Let me change the const to a let so that it's a way I can change the value instead of keeping it a constant. And I'm going to try text equal to 1. Okay. So you need to realize here that hello world here is a string and 1 here is a number. So what happens here when I try to compile this? We have an error. We have an error saying that the number cannot be assigned to a type string. That is because when we initialized our variable text with hello world string, TypeScript understood that text will always be a string
And because of that, TypeScript is telling us now that you can't assign a number to a string. Now, TypeScript infers the types at times like this. We'll learn more about type inferences and details on that later down in the course. So instead, if I simply say that text is a number, and then I say text is 1, and then try to do text is hello world, that's gonna work practically the same way. When I assign hello world to it, it's gonna show us an error. So this is basically everything that types do, right? So types basically define the type of a certain variable when you declare it. And if you try to assign a variable of a different type to it, it's gonna throw an error to it. For instance, if you have a name of a person that you have in your system, name always has to be a string. If you try to assign a number there, that's gonna throw you an error. So what about objects, or when you have a dictionary of stuff? So similar to, let's say, let's person. I'm gonna say I have a person, and the person has a name of John Doe and an age of 30, 32, and that's my person. And let's just delete this for now, and let's say I'm gonna print the name of the person here. Person dot age. So I'm gonna print the age of the person there. Now that should work fine. Okay, I did make an error there. Blunder there. I didn't put a comma here to separate the keys of our object. So, and there you have it. So if I simply try to write node of index.js, now we have the age being printed here, just like what you defined. So how do you define the type of an object? What we have here is an object, or a collection of items that we consider to be together. So what is the type of this, right? So how do you define the type of this? So in order to get started, for us to get used to React, we'll need to understand how we represent objects, right? So what we can do is use interfaces here. So I'm gonna say I have an interface named person, and I'm gonna define that the name of any person is going to be a string, and I'm also going to define that the age of any person is going to be a number. And I'm going to close that, and I'm going to say that let's call this object as John, and let's say that is of type person. And then we would say John is a new object with name as John Doe and age is 32. And now if I try to save it, I still seem to be having an error. Let's see what is that error. Okay, I'm still trying to reference person again. So I'm going to go back in there, rename this to John, and that should work now. Yep. So let's just say that we have strings, numbers, and booleans, which are practically the most of the types that you would be using in the beginning of this course. And then we have interfaces to represent objects or more complex variables that we have. This chapter is simply aimed at giving you a basic understanding of how we would represent types in TypeScript. We'll learn more about TypeScript and how important it is to use TypeScript as we go down this course. Now we've taken a quick look at strings, numbers, and booleans. Now let's take an example of boolean as well. So let's say we have a let flag is equal to true. So true and false are the values that a Boolean can have. So we'll have true, we'll have false, we'll have undefined, just like any JavaScript thing. And these are basically the primitive types, on top of which we have the objects, which would be represented as an interface. And we also have arrays or lists in JavaScript, right? So how do you define the type of a list of, say, strings? So arrays are simply represented by empty square brackets. So if I want to say student names, and that would be array of names, then I would say it is of type string array. So I'm just opening and closing a curly brace here, and let's say students would be a set of people or person objects. I would just say that this would be an array of person, and then I can say that this is equals, I can represent a simple array here, and then say there is a guy named John and another guy named and we'll say we have another guy named or a girl named Jane. That's a standard example, right? So of age 24. That's how you would create an array of person objects, right? So this is just a simple example of how you would define the more simpler types in TypeScript. We learn more about all of these as we go down the course. So you can simply use the TSC command that you've set up here to test out any simple TypeScript doubts that you have, to try out TypeScript whenever you need to. In the next lesson, we'll be directly going into React TypeScript, and we'll start working on our React project. See you in the next lesson. Bye, everyone.